You are tuning in to the Human Side of Engineering and Product Development podcast, brought to you by Saratech, where we bring you industry leaders and some of the brightest minds in engineering solutions and product development. I'm Andy Dio, your host. Join me as we discover the inspiring stories of the people behind the most innovative and game-changing solutions in the market today. So tune in and enjoy. Good afternoon, Ken, and thank you for joining our podcast. How are you doing today?
Andy, thank you very much for having me. I'm doing well. Thank you. And yourself?
Very well, thank you. So you are currently the Senior Vice President of Engineering Services at Saratech, and you and I work together. As an engineer, you started out your career as an engineer, as a systems engineer, and you've been in the industry for a while.
I don't want to age myself, but I've been about 35 years in the aerospace and defense sector. I literally started out, Andy, as what's called an ink on mylar board draftsman. And I've worked at some really great companies like Northrop Grumman, McDonnell Douglas, the Boeing Company. And over my career, I've been involved with maybe 7, 8, 9 aircraft development programs. I've seen a lot of transition from, board level drafting to some really great and creative CAE and CAD tools. I've had a pretty good career that spanned a lot of years.
Yeah, and so you came from, obviously everyone first starts out in that field, starts as an engineer, and then gradually as you gain experience, knowledge, and skills, you move into management. As a manager or someone at a management level, what are some of the things that you are seeing today in terms of needs for engineers and people who work in the field? For example, obviously the tools that we have today are much more powerful and much more efficient than what we had 20 or 30 or even 10 years ago. Are tools enough? Or are there other factors that are affecting how people are working today?
Yeah, Andy, great question. Obviously, COVID was a big differentiator to a lot of companies out there. A lot of companies, when COVID hit, went all remote. What I see now is, and I deal with maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 customers a week. I have a lot of frequency in working with our entire customer base. A lot of great folks out there. A lot of customers are saying, you know what, we're going to stay remote. It's working for us. We've got a lot of web tools, a lot of interaction, collaboration tools. We also have some customers saying, you know what, the good old days, we need to get those back. So everyone's going to be required to come back, right? Which poses different challenges, right? So there's a lot of engineering needs. And what we find typically is the aerospace and defense sector is very cyclical. We're on kind of an up year. You have what we've seen is a big influx of launch vehicle companies, urban air mobility companies, right? And so the market right now has heavy needs for engineering resources. So to answer your point, Andy, about is technology enough? It really isn't enough. We're facing labor shortages. We're facing different work environments. We're just facing a lot of challenges in the industry with a lot of demanding projects. And, top level managers are really requiring more and more things to be done faster, more expeditiously, and more efficient.
Absolutely. And I feel that as well. As you know, I work with a distributed team for my marketing organization. And even though the technology is there, right? You have video conferencing, you have, real-time chat, you have your cell phone. I mean, there are so many ways to connect with people, but sometimes that is just definitely not enough. You need that human-to-human connection. Sometimes I feel like you get the other person more if you are in front of them and having an actual conversation. And I think a lot of that is true, what you said. Some companies are okay with that being the working environment. Some companies aren't. And it really depends on the culture, the people within the company themselves. But if you look at the new young companies, engineers that are coming into the workforce now, they grew up in social media. They grew up on, when I grew up and when you grew up, we didn't have an iPhone, We had no idea that you can talk to people or chat to people across the world and all that. So I think the amount of tolerance people have for technology and how they leverage it is different. Do you feel that the same way? If companies have a lot of younger engineers, I feel like they can adapt a little bit better to this environment. But at the same time, you're going to need someone to lead them or guide them, right? You can't have a company with just all young engineers. They have nowhere to go. They have no direction. They have no one of experience to teach them. How do you feel a company should adjust to having a mixed work environment some people are more adaptive to technology and some people are not?
Yeah, Andy, great question. If I had the answer, I'd be a millionaire, of course. But the reality here is that think back, years and years ago, or when life was simpler, right? And we didn't have this technology. When a couple went out on a date, they spent a lot of time interacting and coordinating and looking at each
Yes.
other and stuff. Literally, every time you go out, you see young couples. What are they doing? They're on their phones, not even looking at the other person, and that's a very natural norm these days, right? And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
and if you look at that's a basic human need is the personal interaction. Now we're talking about delivering product, designing stuff, collaborative efforts. How do you not do that with all of these tools and engagement? Right? That's an extremely important critical item, but more importantly is the human connection. You can go on a whiteboard, sketch up something, and instantly your idea is conveyed very easily.
Yes.
Much more difficult to do when you're multi-remote locations, trying to tee into each other. It's just difficult. Plus, you have distractions, right? You
Yeah,
have a lot of distractions when you're working from home as well.
absolutely. Yeah. You mentioned before that we are short on engineering resources. Do you mean people or skills or both?
Really, both. I mean, it's the workforce in the aerospace and defense sector, right? A lot of our customers have, let me name four or five. One of them is short 900 engineers. The other one is short 250 engineers for next year. Another one has 153 open recs. Another one has 49 open recs. I mean, these are requirements that it's a well paid, pretty skilled job, and they're just
Yeah.
having a lot of challenges finding people. Part of it's remote. What we see here typically with our customers is the more we can get a remote position filled, it's easier because more people want to work remote, as opposed to, well, they got to be on site. Then you got to either relocate or, deal with traffic or all the issues of, being on site. And a lot of times we can't get away from on site activities because, we're building product, we're building designs, we're testing stuff, and, we're delivering for our customer. So a lot of challenges there, Andy.
Yeah. And, for certain ITAR requirement, you absolutely have to be on site, right? You can't remote in.
Well, the whole thing with ITAR is making sure that they're U.S. persons, right? And so if you're just going over the internet and it's not a stable internet, someone can hack
Hmm.
in. And then what you've done is you've exposed sensitive U.S. data to, non or so say foreign people, non-U.S. persons. And
Yep.
that's a real concern, right? So if you have that protocol in place, you're probably okay, but a lot of people do not.
I see.
Cybersecurity is a real dangerous concern.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big, big issue, right? Resources are scarce. Matter of fact, in a few weeks, I'm going to have a conversation with one of the leaders at UC Irvine, and I'm going to have the conversation about education for our engineers and building or educating more engineers. Besides that, what can a company do when they are short on resources? And, hiring is tough, finding people is tough. What are some of the few suggestions that you've seen may have worked, or you may see some other companies try something that works?
Well, I know, for example, for us at Saratech, we like getting a lot of young interns and then kind of checking them out, bringing them up to speed. And then when they graduate, we hire them. And then right away, we put them with kind of a graybeard. So typically, two or three interns might be supporting one graybeard engineer who's really well experienced. That's the quickest way to accelerate someone to really understand what they have to be doing. Now, I will tell you that's much better being done in person
Yep.
as opposed to someone remote. Because when you're remote, you've got all these questions in your mind, and what do? You're always picking up the phone, you're always trying to chat someone, or you're always trying to Microsoft Teams. It's so much easier going into someone's office, mapping something out, having to explain it to you. The adoption factor of getting experience is much more accelerated when you are close to someone.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Once you have to have a certain level of experience before you can be autonomous and really be able to do what you need to do. And
Right.
engineering is difficult, it's not an easy profession. And there's a lot of knowledge and quirks and things, even on proven system or proven processes. You need to know some of the quirks and how to work around it. You need to know how things break. So, absolutely a big challenge for a lot of companies out there today. And I'm sure it's on a lot of people's minds. Now,
Absolutely.
yeah. Earlier, you mentioned there's some exciting things that are happening in the aerospace industry. What are some cool current engineering trends that you're seeing out there, Ken?
A lot of companies are trying to go fully digital, right? Fully digital twin enabled. And really what that means is taking their old processes and procedures and adopting them to new technology. And the big challenge there is organizational change management. It's getting the people to do things differently so you can use it efficiently. Literally this morning we had a customer call, and the customer is saying they have got some complex documents. And the phrase was made during the phone call. They said, it's hard to get our guys to make a change when it doesn't benefit them, but it benefits downstream users. And so there's a paradigm shift of, all right, looking at an overall company perspective, right? Because people fundamentally want to do what's easiest for themselves, right?
True.
And sometimes the technology doesn't allow that to happen. You've got to look at the big picture, the entire work process flow to see what kind of benefits you can gain.
That's a really good point that you made there. Often when we do work, we're focusing on our part of the project, whether you're an engineer or any other line of work that involves multiple parties. You pretty much focus on what you're doing and you're trying to do the best you can without often thinking down the line, hey, how is this going to affect the next person that's going to work on this project or on that? How do we mitigate or get people out of those silo thinking?
Well, it's two things. Number one, it's technology, and number two, it's process mapping. Again, that same customer call this morning, are the customers saying, hey, look, someone had created a document a number of years ago. They put it in their hard drive, and then the same type of requirement came up. They pulled that same document, dusted it off, updated it, and then tried to resubmit it through a process flow for release. And someone said, wait a second, this isn't the new form we use now. We've changed forms a year ago, and you pulled an old form. And so what they did is they try to short circuit their need to get this thing done, but yet it now causes a further delay because of the bigger picture process. So again, it's really technology and process mapping. And then, of course, with that comes the organizational change management adoption, or people understanding how to make this change happen.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people and a lot of company and managers see that. How do you get your people to buy in? People obviously, there's always resistance when you're trying to implement something new or change or update a process. What are some of the key things to get your people to buy into something like that?
It's a phased approach, right? Phase one, phase two, phase three. You can't boil the ocean in one sitting. I will give you a case study. A couple of years ago, we had a company up in Palo Alto, California. They were going away from one CAD system to another system and using a PLM tool. They spent a lot of money with us. We basically made the change happen. And what happened is their engineers were so familiar with this other CAD platform that they essentially revolted and said, look, guys, if you want something done, forget your new stuff you just bought, $500,000 worth of it, and allow us to continue working with it. And management said, you know what? Okay. So the investment was made, and it was just a big waste of money, simply because of lack of adoption from the engineering level user. And that happens.
Yeah.
So it really is a phased approach. Here's the benefits. Here's our phase one. It's some hand holding through the technology to make people comfortable with it. And that's probably the best way. I will give you one more example, Andy. A number of years ago, I used to love the BlackBerry. because I could
Yeah.
text like crazy on it, super fast.
Everybody
And
had it.
yeah, when the iPhone came out, I'm like, I'm not a big Apple fan. It's a great tool, but I'm emotionally connected to the BlackBerry,
Of course. Of
and it's
course.
been
Yeah.
many years.
Yeah. 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 I get it. I get it. And people are very loyal to brands, aren't they? For
There,
example, in our industry, um, we see people use different technologies, some from Autodesk, some from Dassault, some from Siemens, and people live or die by the tool that they use or they were trained on. And
mm-hmm.
honestly, if you look at the technology out there and the tools, every tool can do the same thing.
Yeah.
It just the interface may be different. Maybe one tool can do a certain thing better than another tool, but at the end of the day, they all can do the job. So people are very attached to what they love or what they're used to. That is absolutely true. I mean, I know for me, I remember when I first got my MacBook Pro, I came from a PC world.
Mm.
And when I first started using the MacBook, I'm like, this is so awkward. I don't know why people are saying this is so easy, because everything that I'm used to do and things work a certain way on a Windows PC doesn't work
Yeah.
at all on a Mac. So, but now I'm used to it. You know, I've had years of experience with it. So getting that mindset change is very difficult.
Absolutely, Andy.
Now, one thing I know about you is you love tennis, don't you?
I play a number of sports, and tennis is one. Great sport.
Yeah, yeah. So that's definitely something that you and I have to go out and do, because I know, believe it or not, I used to play tennis for my high school, and it was a long time ago. But I did play tennis for high school.
Andy, I'm ready. We'll put some money on it and make both people happy.
Maybe we do some lunch bets, huh?
There you go.
Yeah. Now tennis. So tennis, running, a lot of those are individual sports, right? But then you have a lot of time you see teams and people who work together. The analogy is always, oh, we work as a team, we operate
Mm.
as a team. Um, it's not always easy to do that. To operate as a team, to work as a team, there's challenges, there's hurdle. It's very easy to do things by yourself and the way that you like to do it. So I always akin an engineering group or an engineering team to a sports. You pick a sport, football, basketball. You have to work together as a unit in order to get things done and to win, right? Winning solves a lot of problems. So in this environment of people across, we talked about this earlier, people who live in different
Mhm.
areas, people even work in different countries, different time zones. How do you build a team? How do you build a cohesive team that can operate and work and connect with each other when maybe the opportunity of face to face is just not real?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Alignment, personal alignment is extremely important. Having good leadership, defining guys, or girls, what is the objective of what we're trying to accomplish? Okay, we all play a pivotal role in that process. So, from an alignment standpoint, what does the team have to accomplish? It isn't an individual have to accomplish, but the team. Right? If you're building an airplane, for example, it takes engineering, manufacturing, production, flight tests, certification, all that stuff has to come together, right? There's no point in engineering something that's phenomenal, but it can't be built or it can't be
Right,
assembled or it can't be certified, right? And
right,
so that it's really a requirement standpoint of here's your parameters, here's your requirements, here's the overall objective. How do we go ahead and execute to that, right? And it's really kind of following a roadmap. And not an easy question to address, Andy. And a lot of companies challenge with this because everyone
for
has their own
sure.
different motivations.
For sure. And you see a lot of customers, I see customers, and a lot of them are facing this challenge. So this is a question not just for you to
Correct.
solve. I'm just posing the question out there so that we see what is happening in the industry as engineers, as people in tech, and as leaders in tech. I think part of our role is just to educate people on what's out there, what's reality, what are people dealing with, and share with them the information that we have that may help them solve a problem here or there. Like you said earlier, we don't need to boil the ocean, but I think if we can just help one person or one company here or there to solve specific problem that are slowing them down, you know, uh, messing up their productivity, I think that goes a long way.
And he absolutely does. I completely agree with you.
Yeah. Well, Ken, I know you're an extremely busy person. I'm
Happy to do
very
it.
happy to have a chance to have this conversation with you today. Really, thank you for being on with us, and look forward to talk to you again soon in a future episode.
Andy, my pleasure. Thanks, everyone. Take care now.